You know what drives me absolutely crazy? Spending hours in the garden babying plants that barely produce anything. You water them, you fertilize them, you worry over them, and then harvest time comes and you get maybe a handful of vegetables for all that work. It is frustrating, it is discouraging, and honestly, it makes you wonder if growing your own food is even worth it. But here's the thing, it does not have to be that way. There are vegetables out there that produce like absolute champions with almost no effort on your part. I have been growing food for over 2 decades, and I have learned which crops are the true workhorses of the garden. Today, I'm sharing 15 vegetables that will pump out harvests all season long without demanding constant attention. And stick around, because number 13 is going to blow your mind with how much food it produces from just a few plants. Plus, I have got a bonus tip at the end that will help you extend your harvests even further into the year. All right, the first vegetable we have got to talk about is zucchini, and if you have ever grown it, you already know what I'm about to say. This plant is an absolute production machine. 1 or 2 zucchini plants will produce more squash than most families can eat, freeze, or give away. We are talking about a continuous harvest from early summer straight through to the first frost. Zucchini thrives in USDA zones 3 through 10, which covers most of the United States, and it asks for very little in return. Plant it after your last frost date when the soil has warmed up, give it full sun and decent drainage, and then just stand back. You will be harvesting squash every 2 to 3 days once production kicks in. Varieties like Black Beauty and Costata Romanesco are incredibly reliable. The key with zucchini is to keep harvesting. The more you pick, the more the plant produces. If you let those squash get too big, the plant thinks its job is done and slows down production. Pick them when they are 6 to 8 inches long for the best flavor and to keep that plant cranking out more fruit. You do not need to fuss with complicated fertilizing schedules or constant pruning. Just water deeply once or twice a week during dry spells, and you will have more zucchini than you know what to do with. The second one I want to share with you is cherry tomatoes, and these little guys are the gift that keeps on giving. While full-size tomatoes can be temperamental and require lots of staking, pruning, and attention, cherry tomatoes are practically indestructible. Varieties like Sun Gold, Sweet Million, and Black Cherry will produce hundreds of tomatoes per plant throughout the growing season. They grow well in zones 3 through 11, and once they get established, they basically run on autopilot. Plant them after your last frost, give them a tomato cage or some support, and then watch them explode with fruit. The beautiful thing about cherry tomatoes is they are incredibly forgiving. Miss a watering? They bounce back. Not the best soil? They still produce. The plants get big and a little unruly, sure, but that is because they are too busy making tomatoes to worry about staying neat and tidy. You will be picking ripe cherry tomatoes almost daily from midsummer until frost kills the plant. They are perfect for snacking, salads, roasting, or preserving. And here's a little secret. If you let a few tomatoes fall and rot where they land, you will get volunteer plants popping up next year in the same spot. I have had cherry tomato plants reseed themselves for 3 years running without me planting a single seed. Number 3 is a personal favorite of mine, and that is green beans, specifically bush beans. Pole beans produce more over a longer period, but if we are talking about pure ease and effort, bush beans win every time. These plants are ridiculously simple to grow. You literally poke a seed in the ground after your last frost, and ate 2. 10 weeks later, you are harvesting beans. They grow in zones 3 through 10, and they actually improve your soil while they grow because they fix nitrogen from the air. Varieties like Provider, Contender, and Blue Lake Bush are absolute workhorses. Plant a 10-foot row, and you will get pounds and pounds of beans from a single planting. The plants stay compact, do not need staking, and produce heavily for about 2 to 3 weeks. Here's the trick to getting beans all season with no effort. Do succession planting. Plant a new 10-foot row every 2 weeks from late spring through midsummer. and you will have fresh beans coming in continuously from July through October. Each planting takes maybe 10 minutes to sow, and then you just let them do their thing. Beans do not need fertilizer, they rarely have pest problems, and they tolerate some drought once established. When harvest time comes, just run your hands down the plants and grab the beans. It is therapeutic, honestly, and you will fill a basket in no time. Now, if you are enjoying this so far, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and means I can keep bringing you videos like this one. Plus, you will never miss out on new tips to level up your garden. All right, let us keep going. The fourth vegetable on our list is lettuce. And I am not talking about those finicky head lettuces that bolt the second it gets warm. I am talking about loose-leaf lettuce varieties like red sales, black-seeded Simpson, and oak leaf. These lettuces are cut-and-come-again champions. You plant them once, and you can harvest from the same plants for months. They grow well in zones 4 through 9 during spring and fall, and in zones 8 through 10, you can grow them straight through winter. The beauty of loose-leaf lettuce is you just snip off the outer leaves and let the center keep growing. One small packet of seeds will give you salad greens for your entire family all season long. Plant them in early spring, about 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost. They can handle light frosts no problem. Sprinkle the seeds, cover lightly with soil, keep them moist for about a week, and boom, you have got lettuce. In about 4 weeks, you can start harvesting. Just take the biggest outer leaves and leave the small inner ones to keep growing. Do another planting in late summer for fall harvests, and in mild climates, cover them with a simple row cover or cold frame, and you will have fresh lettuce in December and January. It does not get much easier than that. Next up, we have got kale, and this is where things get really exciting for year-round production. Kale is one of the toughest, most productive vegetables you can grow, and it actually gets sweeter after a few frosts. It grows in zones 6 through 9 year-round, and in colder zones, it will produce from spring through late fall, surviving temperatures down to 10 or 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Varieties like Winterbore, Lacinato, and Red Russian are incredibly prolific. One plant can give you harvests for 6 to 8 months if you treat it right. Plant kale in early spring or late summer, give it full sun to partial shade, and then just let it grow. Like lettuce, you harvest kale by taking the lower leaves and letting the top keep growing. The plant will keep pushing out new growth from the center as long as you keep harvesting. I have had single kale plants produce for an entire year in my Zone 7 garden. You can eat it fresh, saute it, add it to soups, make kale chips, freeze it, whatever you want. Kale rarely has pest problems if you plant it at the right time. It does not need much fertilizer, and it tolerates drought better than most greens. If you want a vegetable that produces massive amounts of food for almost no work, kale is your answer. Another fantastic option you should definitely consider is Swiss chard, and honestly, this vegetable does not get nearly enough love. Chard is like kale's more colorful, slightly milder cousin. It produces heavily from spring through fall in zones 3 through 10, and in mild climates, it will go straight through winter. Varieties like Bright Lights, Ford Hook Giant, and Ruby Red are stunning to look at and incredibly productive. One chard plant can give you harvests for 6 months or more. You plant it once in spring after the last frost, and then you just keep cutting leaves all season. The plant keeps growing back over and over and over. Chard tolerates heat better than most greens, so while your lettuce and spinach are bolting in June, your chard is still cranking out beautiful leaves. It also tolerates light frosts, so it keeps producing into fall when other crops are done. You can use chard anywhere you would use spinach or kale. Saute the leaves, use them in quiche, add them to smoothies, or freeze them for later. The stems are edible too and add great color and crunch to stir fries. Chard rarely has serious pest issues. It does not need much water once established, and it grows in almost any soil. Plant a few chard plants in spring, and you'll be set for greens all year. Coming in at number 7, we have radishes, and these might be the fastest, easiest vegetable on this entire list. Radishes go from seed to harvest in 3 to 4 weeks. That is it. You can fit multiple radish crops into a single season with basically zero effort. They grow in zones 2 through 11, and you can plant them in spring, summer, and fall. Varieties like Cherry Belle, French Breakfast, and Easter Egg are foolproof. You are pulling radishes. Kids love growing radishes because they see results so fast. But here's the thing most people do not realize. You can eat the greens too. Radish greens are peppery and delicious in salads or sautéed. So you are getting 2 harvests from one plant. Radishes do not need fertilizer. They do not need special soil, and they rarely have pest problems because they grow so fast that pests do not have time to find them. Use them as a quick crop between slower growing plants. Plant them in early spring for a fast harvest before tomatoes go in, or plant them in fall when summer crops are winding down. You can plant radishes every 2 weeks from early spring through late fall and have fresh radishes continuously. That is serious production for almost no effort. The 8th crop we need to talk about is cucumbers, and these vines are absolute producing powerhouses. Whether you grow slicing cucumbers, pickling cucumbers, or specialty varieties, they all share one thing in common. They produce like crazy once they get going. Cucumbers grow in zones 4 through 11 and thrive in hot weather. Varieties like Marketmore, National Pickling, and Lemon Cucumber are reliable and prolific. Plant them after all danger of frost is past and the soil is warm. Give them something to climb on or let them sprawl, and then get ready for cucumbers. Lots and lots of cucumbers. A single healthy cucumber plant can produce 10 to 20 pounds of fruit over the course of the season. If you plant 3 or 4 plants, you will have enough cucumbers for fresh eating, pickling, and sharing with neighbors. The key is to keep them picked. Like zucchini, the more you harvest, the more the plant produces. Let cucumbers get too big and yellow on the vine, and the plant slows down. Pick them young and often, and the plant will keep flowering and setting fruit until frost. Cucumbers do need consistent water, but if you mulch around the plants, you can cut watering down to once or twice a week. They do not need much fertilizer, and if you grow them vertically on a trellis, they take up very little space and have fewer disease problems. Number 9 is going to surprise some people, and that is turnips. Most folks think of turnips as just a root vegetable, but they are actually a double-duty crop. You get the roots and the greens, and both are delicious and nutritious. Turnips grow incredibly fast. They tolerate cool weather like you do kale or chard. Take the outer leaves and let the plant keep growing. Meanwhile, the roots are developing underground. When the roots reach 2 to 3 inches in diameter, pull them up and enjoy. Turnips store well. They are great roasted, mashed, or added to soups. And the greens are wonderful sautéed or added to salads. Arugula is a cut-and-come-again green that grows incredibly fast and produces heavily for months. It grows in zones 3 through 9 during spring and fall, and in mild climates, you can grow it year-round. Arugula goes from seed to first harvest in just 3 to 4 weeks. You can start cutting leaves when the plant is only 4 to 5 inches tall, and it will keep producing new growth as long as you keep harvesting. One small planting of arugula will give you fresh salad greens for 6 to 8 weeks before it starts to bolt. But here's the thing. Arugula reseeds itself like crazy. If you let a few plants flower and go to seed, you will have arugula popping up on its own for years. I have not intentionally planted arugula in 3 years, and I still have it growing in my garden every spring and fall. It is like a free, self-renewing crop. Arugula does not need any special care. Scatter the seeds in early spring or late summer, keep them moist for a week, and then just start harvesting. It tolerates light frosts. It actually tastes better in cool weather, and it grows well in partial shade. If you want a low-effort green that produces tons of flavor, arugula is the way to go. Number 11 is spinach, and specifically, I'm talking about varieties that are bred for bolt resistance and heavy production. Spinach can be tricky in hot weather, but if you plant it at the right time and choose the right varieties, it is one of the most productive greens you can grow. Look for varieties like Bloomsdale Longstanding, Space, and Tai. These are bred to handle temperature swings and keep producing. Spinach grows best in zones 3 through 9 during spring and fall. Plant it about 6 weeks before your last frost in spring, and it will produce heavily for 2 to 3 months before warm weather causes it to bolt. Plant it again in late summer, about 6 to 8 weeks before your first fall frost, and you will get another huge harvest that lasts well into winter, especially if you protect it with row covers. Spinach is a cut-and-come-again crop. You can harvest individual leaves, or you can cut the entire plant down to about an inch above the soil and let it regrow. I have gotten 3 to 4 cuttings from a single planting of spinach. It does not need much fertilizer, it tolerates light frosts and even freezes, and it grows quickly. In about 4 to 5 weeks, you will have your first harvest. For anyone who wants fresh greens without a lot of work, spinach is a must-grow. The 12th vegetable on this list is scallions, also called green onions or bunching onions, and these are one of the most underrated, easy-to-grow crops out there. Scallions produce continuously. They regrow after cutting, and they grow in zones 3 through 10 year-round in mild climates. Varieties like Evergreen Hardy White and Tokyo Long White are incredibly reliable. You can start scallions from seed or from sets, and they will be ready to harvest in about 8 weeks. But here's the cool part. You do not have to pull the whole plant. Just cut the green tops off about an inch above the soil, and the plant will regrow. You can get multiple harvests from the same plants over several months. Scallions also tolerate a huge range of temperatures. They grow through spring, summer, and fall, and in zones 7 and warmer, they will even survive winter and keep producing. Plant them once, and you will have fresh onions for salads, stir-fries, tacos, and everything else for months on end. They do not need rich soil, they do not need much water, and they have virtually no pest problems. If you want a crop that gives you continuous harvests with zero fuss, scallions are it. Number 13 is going to blow your mind with sheer production, and that is pole beans. I mentioned bush beans earlier, but pole beans are on a whole different level when it comes to output. A single pole bean plant can produce beans for 2 to 3 months straight, and we are talking pounds and pounds of beans from just a few plants. Pole beans grow in zones 3 through 10, and varieties like Kentucky Wonder, Vortex, and Blue Lake Pole are legendary for their productivity. You plant them after your last frost, give them a trellis or pole to climb, and then stand back. Pole beans will climb 6 to 8 feet tall and cover whatever support you give them. Once they start producing, you will be picking beans every 2 to 3 days for months. I have grown 4 pole bean plants and harvested over 40 pounds of beans in a single season. They do not need fertilizer because they fix their own nitrogen. They need very little water once established, and they rarely have pest issues. The only real effort is setting up the support structure, and even that is simple. Drive a few tall stakes into the ground, tie some twine between them, and you are done. Pole beans produce far more than bush beans from the same amount of space, and they keep going until frost shuts them down. If you want maximum production with minimum effort, pole beans are absolute champions. The 14th vegetable we need to talk about is summer squash, and I am including all the varieties here: yellow crookneck, straightneck, patty pan, and zephyr squash. All of them produce like crazy with very little input from you. Summer squash grows in zones 3 through 10, and it thrives in hot weather. Plant it after your last frost when the soil is warm, and it will start producing in about 50 to 60 days. Once it starts, you will be harvesting squash every 2 to 3 days. Varieties like Early Prolific Straightneck, Sunburst Patty Pan, and Zephyr are incredibly reliable. The plants get big and bushy, so give them some space, but they do not need staking or complex pruning. Just let them grow. Like zucchini, the key is to keep harvesting. Pick the squash when they are young and tender, about 4 to 6 inches long, and the plant will keep producing. Let them get huge, and production slows down. Summer squash does not need a lot of fertilizer. A little compost at planting time is plenty. Water deeply once or twice a week during dry spells, and you are set. I have had single summer squash plants produce 20 to 30 squash over the course of a season. Plant 2 or 3, and you will have more squash than you can handle. Finally, number 15 is peppers, and specifically, I am talking about hot peppers and smaller sweet pepper varieties. While large bell peppers can be slow and temperamental, smaller peppers like jalapenos, shishitos, banana peppers, and lunchbox sweet peppers are production machines. They grow in zones 4 through 11, and once they start producing, they do not stop until frost. Varieties like jalapeno, shishito, Hungarian hot wax, and lunchbox are incredibly prolific. Plant peppers after all danger of frost has passed and the soil is warm. They like heat, so do not rush them. Once they are established and the weather warms up, they will explode with fruit. A single jalapeno plant can produce 50 to 100 peppers over the course of the season. Shishito plants are even more productive. The beautiful thing about peppers is they do not need constant attention. Water them deeply once a week, give them full sun, and they will keep cranking out fruit. You do not need to prune them, you do not need to fertilize them heavily, and they rarely have serious pest problems. Just keep picking the peppers as they ripen, and the plant will keep making more. Peppers also handle some neglect. Miss a watering? They bounce back. Soil not perfect? They still produce. If you want a low-maintenance crop that produces all summer and into fall, peppers are a fantastic choice. All right, now here's a bonus tip that is going to change the game for you and help you extend these harvests even further. Succession planting and season extension are your secret weapons for year-round production with minimal effort. Here's what I mean. For fast-growing crops like lettuce, radishes, arugula, beans, and turnips, do not plant everything at once. Plant a small amount every 2 to 3 weeks from spring through late summer. That way, you have continuous harvests instead of a huge glut all at once followed by nothing. It takes almost no extra effort because you are just planting small amounts, but it keeps food coming in steadily. Now, for season extension, invest in a few simple tools like row covers, cold frames, or hoop tunnels. You do not need anything fancy or expensive. A $10 floating row cover draped over your greens will protect them from frost and extend your harvest by 4 to 6 weeks in both spring and fall. I have harvested kale, chard, spinach, lettuce, and arugula in December and January using nothing but a simple row cover. In mild climates, zones 7 and warmer, you can grow greens, scallions, and turnips straight through winter with minimal protection. That means fresh food from your garden 12 months a year. The effort is minimal. You just toss a cover over your plants when frost is coming. But the payoff is huge. You are eating homegrown vegetables in the middle of winter while everyone else is buying expensive, flavorless greens from the store. Combine succession planting with season extension, and you will have a garden that feeds you year-round with very little ongoing work. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If this video helped you out, smash that like button and subscribe if you have not already. I put out new gardening videos every week, and I would love to have you back. Now get out there and grow something amazing.